the harsh stares, the doubt from everyone around him. But then, just as the judge was about to call for the verdict, a piece of evidence surfaced that no one expected. The defense team had dug into the store's security footage once more, this time with a better quality version that had been kept hidden. It revealed a startling detail. Someone else, with a clear view of the scene, had been in the store just before the theft occurred. It wasn't Marcus. The real thief was caught on camera in the act, his face fully visible for the first time. But just as relief began to flood Marcus, a chilling twist came. The thief, it turned out, was a former friend from his neighborhood, someone he had known and trusted. The shock reverberated through the room. Marcus couldn't believe it. He was free, but the betrayal hit him harder than anything else. How could someone he once called a friend destroy so many lives with a lie? The courtroom erupted into chaos, but amidst it all, Marcus couldn't help but feel a strange sense of emptiness. The battle for justice was won, but the scars would remain. As the gavel came down and the case was officially closed, Marcus knew his journey was far from over. The fight for change, for equality, and for the truth was just beginning. In the weeks following the trial, Marcus felt a mix of relief and confusion. He was free, but the emotional toll of everything he had endured weighed heavily on him. His family, too, had been through so much, but they stood stronger together. The community that had rallied around him also felt a sense of victory, yet the shadow of injustice lingered. Marcus didn't let the pain define him. Instead, it fueled his drive to change the system. He worked tirelessly, finishing his education and eventually becoming the lawyer he'd always dreamed of. His experiences gave him a unique perspective, one that kept him determined to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Looking back, Marcus realized something powerful. The system might be broken, but people like him, resilient, determined, and unafraid, could be the ones to fix it. The fight for justice wasn't over. It had just begun. Imagine being accused of a crime you didn't commit, handcuffed, and judged before you could even defend yourself. This is the story of Marcus, a Black teenager who found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. One moment he was walking home from school, the next he was being arrested for a theft he didn't commit. The humiliation, fear, and confusion he felt were overwhelming. But Marcus didn't let this moment define him. Instead, it ignited a fire within him to fight for justice, not just for himself, but for others like him. How does someone go from being unfairly labeled a criminal to standing tall as a lawyer in a courtroom? This story is about resilience, courage, and the power of turning pain into purpose. Stay tuned as we unravel Marcus's incredible journey of transformation and the lessons it holds for us all. Marcus was just 16 when his life changed in an instant. Growing up in a close-knit neighborhood, he had dreams like any other teenager, finishing school, helping his family, and maybe one day going to college. But on that fateful day, as he walked home past a small convenience store, chaos erupted. A man ran out, yelling about stolen goods, and within minutes, the police arrived. Without asking questions, they pointed at Marcus. He froze, confused and terrified. "I didn't do anything," he tried to explain, but the officers weren't listening. Handcuffed in front of strangers, his heart pounded as the crowd whispered. Even as his family pleaded for someone to believe him, Marcus was taken away. Sitting in a cold, sterile interrogation room, Marcus realized how easily a life could be derailed by assumptions. But why did they choose him? And how could he ever prove his innocence? As Marcus sat in that small, dimly lit room, the weight of the situation began to sink in. He could hear the muffled voices of the officers outside, talking about evidence they didn't have and assumptions they'd already made. He thought about his mom, probably pacing the floor at home, and his little sister, who always looked up to him. The fear of letting them down gnawed at him, but what hurt most was the injustice. How could they accuse him without proof? The store's surveillance footage was blurry, and the real thief's face was covered. But the officer said Marcus fit the description. That phrase echoed in his mind. He wondered how many other people had been trapped by those sane words. Meanwhile, his family scrambled for help. A neighbor who'd seen Marcus at the bus stop earlier that day came forward, but would anyone listen? For Marcus, this wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about fighting a system that seemed determined to see him fail. The days following Marcus's arrest felt like a blur. His family worked tirelessly, reaching out to anyone who could help. They contacted a local community group that stood up for people in situations like his. A volunteer lawyer agreed to take his case, but the odds seemed stacked against them. The police had labeled Marcus guilty from the start, and the prosecutor wasn't willing to back down. In the courtroom, Marcus felt every stare, every whisper. He couldn't shake the feeling that people saw him as nothing more than the accusations against him. The lawyer argued that there was no clear evidence, but the prosecutor focused on stereotypes, painting a picture that didn't represent Marcus at all. As tensions mounted, Marcus began to see the cracks in the system, how easy it was for someone like him to be swept into a cycle of blame. He watched, helpless as the case dust, when it seemed like things couldn't get worse. A new piece of evidence surfaced, a witness statement from someone claiming to have seen Marcus near the store before the theft. Marcus's heart sank. He knew he had walked past the store, but he didn't go inside. Now this shaky testimony added another layer to the case, making it even harder to prove his innocence. The volunteer lawyer dug deeper, combing through police reports and store records. That's when they found something shocking, a history of similar thefts in the area. Each time, the description of the suspect was vague, but it always seemed to target someone who looked like Marcus. Was this just a coincidence, or was something more sinister at play? Meanwhile, the pressure on Marcus's family grew. His mom began receiving calls from people questioning her parenting, and Marcus's little sister overheard classmates talking about him. Marcus could feel the weight of it all, but he refused to give up. With every new challenge, his determination grew stronger. He was more convinced than ever that the system wasn't just flawed, it was broken. But how could he prove it before it was too late? Moved toward a breaking point. The trial had reached its breaking point. Marcus sat in the courtroom, heart racing, as his lawyer made their final argument. The weight of the past few weeks pressed on him, the sleepless nights,